In 1954, the world of cinema was enriched with the release of a suspenseful thriller that would become an unforgettable classic, Dial M for Murder, directed by the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. This film, starring Ray Milland, Grace Kelly, Robert Cummings, Anthony Dawson, and John Williams, not only stood out for its intricate plot, but also for the way it was brought to the screen, based on a stage play written by English playwright Frederick Knott. The story behind the making of this movie is as fascinating as the film itself. In 1953, Alfred Hitchcock was searching for a new project after a film he had been working on failed to materialize. Frustrated and needing to return to his comfort zone, the murder thriller, Hitchcock decided to adapt a stage play that had already proven successful on British television. This is how Dial M for Murder became part of his filmography and eventually turned into one of Hitchcock's most recognized and beloved films. When it comes to its production, Dial M for Murder is a film that stands out for its simplicity in terms of locations and characters. The majority of the story takes place in a single setting, a decision that heightens the tension and intimacy of the narrative. This is largely due to the film's origins as a stage play, where the setting is essentially static. Warner Brothers purchased the rights to the play for $75,000, a substantial sum at the time, with the intention of bringing the story to the big screen. In 1953, when the project arrived at Warner Brothers, Hitchcock was immersed in the development of a film titled The Bramble Bush. This movie told the story of a man who steals another man's passport, only to discover that the original owner is wanted for murder. However, Hitchcock was never completely satisfied with the story and struggled to give it shape. When Dial M for Murder came to the studio, the director, already familiar with the play due to its previous success, decided to direct this film instead. During the early 1950s, the 3D movie craze was at its peak, and Warner Brothers wanted to capitalize on this trend by pairing the technology with Hitchcock's direction. The studio insisted that the director use the 3D process for this film, which meant working with enormous and complicated cameras necessary for this type of shooting. However, this also presented a unique opportunity that made the film fascinating, even in 2D. To create a visually interesting experience in 3D, Hitchcock added a pit in the floor of the set, allowing the camera to move at low angles and capture objects like lamps in the foreground. This innovative approach resulted in a film that looked like no other in Hitchcock's career, particularly noticeable in the famous scissors scene, which became the film's climactic moment. Despite these efforts, by the time the film was released in 1954, the 3D craze was fading, and most screenings were done in 2D. Nonetheless, Dial M for Murder remains a milestone in Hitchcock's career and is remembered as his first collaboration with the iconic actress Grace Kelly. Among the many blonde actresses that Hitchcock cast in his films, Grace Kelly stands out as the most famous. The director described her as one of those rare gems in cinema, capable of playing any leading role. Their professional relationship was one of the smoothest and most harmonious that Hitchcock ever experienced with a star. They went on to work together in 2 more films after Dial M for Murder, Rear Window in 1954 and To Catch a Thief in 1955. The filming of Dial M for Murder took place almost entirely indoors, in a single setting, a choice made possible by the story's theatrical nature. This also pleased Hitchcock, who preferred shooting in studios and avoided outdoor filming whenever possible. Watching the film, it's difficult to find scenes shot outside the set. Even those that appear to be outdoors are usually projection shots or matte paintings, a common technique at the time. Filming almost exclusively in the Wendesee's apartment not only intensifies the feeling of claustrophobia and tension, but also allows the director to focus on details, something for which Hitchcock was always known. However, in this film, his obsession with detail reached new heights, largely due to the use of 3D cameras, which captured objects differently than his other films. This led Hitchcock to personally select all the objects in the Wendesee's apartment, including the creation of a giant telephone dial for the close-up in the opening sequence where the famous M is focused. Hitchcock's meticulousness also extended to the use of color to reflect the psychological state of Grace Kelly's character. At the beginning of the film, her wardrobe is bright and cheerful, reflecting a seemingly happy life with no apparent problems. As the plot darkens for her, especially when she is framed for murder, her wardrobe becomes darker and more somber, a subtle detail that enriches the film's visual narrative. Another characteristic element of Hitchcock's films is his cameos, and Dial M for Murder is no exception. Although his appearance in this film is more subtle than in others, Hitchcock makes his presence known in a photo of a class reunion that hangs on the wall of the Wendesees' apartment. He is seated at a banquet table among other men, and while it may go unnoticed by those who are not aware, once you know where to look, his cameo is unmistakable. As for Grace Kelly's performance, Hitchcock gave her specific instructions during a key scene where her character feels overwhelmed by events. He directed her to act as if she were in a trance, conveying a sense of detachment and disconnection from reality. Kelly successfully captured this direction, and her performance convincingly conveys her character's confusion and bewilderment as she faces her circumstances. One interesting detail in the film occurs during a scene where the inspector, played by John Williams, plans to expose the husband's involvement in the murder. In this scene, a policeman returns the wife's handbag to the police station, and as he attempts to leave, he slings it over his shoulder. The inspector stops him and warns that he could be arrested for that before placing the handbag inside his briefcase. This seemingly trivial line has a legal background, as British laws regarding sexual behavior were not changed until 1967, and until then, homosexuality was considered a crime. Although the line is delivered in a nearly comedic tone, it reflects the social norms of the time. Grace Kelly, known in the 1950s as an aristocratic beauty from Philadelphia, projected an image of a gentle and refined lady, almost untouchable. However, in Hollywood, she was known for her active love life, maintaining relationships with many of the era's top stars, many of whom were married men. This behavior even extended to the set of Dial M for Murder, where Ray Milland became involved in an affair with her. Milland's wife was furious over the affair, and the actor even considered leaving his wife to marry Grace Kelly. Despite her numerous romances, there are a few figures in Hollywood with whom Kelly did not have relationships, including Alfred Hitchcock, who was deeply infatuated with her, and Clark Gable. It is said that she tried to seduce Gable during the filming of Mogambo in Africa, but her attempt failed when, after being invited to his tent, she became so drunk that she vomited, ending any possibility of romance. Beyond her personal affairs, Grace Kelly is remembered as an extraordinary actress with a screen presence that few could match. Her work in Dial M for Murder is a testament to her talent, and the film remains a brilliant example of classic suspense cinema. If you haven't yet seen this Hitchcock masterpiece, I highly recommend you do. It's a cinematic gem that captures the essence of suspense with impeccable performances and masterful direction. Here we finish. Thank you for your attention. Like and subscribe, as there are many interesting things ahead. Good luck.